So now we are. Welcome, Sarah. I'm very happy that you could do this this talk for us about TRE for refugees. You have both been a refugee yourself and also have worked with refugees here in Norway, as well as in your home country and Turkey as well. And it's been a pleasure for me to get to know you and also to cooperate on several TRE projects and to have your support as well. So I would like to welcome you and also everyone else who is participating this evening. I also like to mention that if anyone would like to participate in a TRE session after the talk, that is also possible. So I will send out the link for that as well, for those who want to sign up. Okay, Sarah, please.
So good evening. In Serbia is evening. So thank you for all of you to be here. And thank you, Hans, to this organization to speaking about refugees. Because a theme about refugees is always actual. All of you know that. We always have refugees, but who is refugees? That is a couple of definitions about that, but shortly, refugees is people, they need to move from home country to other country to struggle about your life and the need after war, after natural catastrophe, after persecution, or etc., etc. So that is a people, they need to move from home country to other country. How many people we have in the world who we can give name refugees? And the World Organization about refugees saying at the end of 2021, we have had about 84 million about refugees. But today, unfortunately, we know what we have 6 new millions from Ukraine. So that is about 90 millions of people is always outside of the home country. That be a little bit more of over 1% of the people in the world. But all of you know that we every moment in the world have over 20% of people, they move from one country to other country to find better life, better job, better study, or etc., etc. So we have always people, they move from one country to other country, but reason is very, very different. But what is very special for refugees? They struggle for your life. That is safety. Refugees haven't safety. They have existential fear for life. They lost all stability, economical stability, social stability. They lost family and friends. And refugees can lose identity too. And they lost the skill to communication, languages, because a lot of refugees going to other country where they speak other language. So that can be very, very big problem for all refugees or for people, for helpers to refugees. Have we research about refugees? We can see it is not good enough. It is not good enough research about refugees' problems. Why? Because refugees is constant movement. One part going one side, another or other side. So it is not very easy to find all refugees in them places. I have started one group in Norway to working with at 100, and I have had only 35 persons. So that is a problem on research with refugees. There are no researchers working directly, but everything is outside. That is uncertain because the refugees are not trusting to people outside. So we have a schema, or we will give to people to answer the question, but people don't trusting to us. So we haven't enough result about refugees, or that is no comparison of the results from different group of research of the refugees. Why? Because refugees can be very, very different, or very going to different country, different goal, they have different origin, or etc., etc. Refugees can have different resources. I was refugees, but I was refugees with resource. So I coming to Norway and find job immediately. But I have worked in Norway with refugees without resources. So that is problem to make very good study about refugees. On the end, we have a big bureaucratical problem, because the procedure to find a residence and permission residence in one country take from 1 to 5 years. But for me, I have PhD in Norway. This was 5 years after to find my permanent license in Norway. So that is a problem to make very good research in every country in the world. But we have more research about students. So students, it's very similar to refugees. They're going from one country to other country to find better study. So already from 1945, we have had one social anthropologist, Oberg, or they have made one schema about process of adjustment to immigration to students from one country to other country. All of you can speaking about couple of phases. After shock in home country from refugees, they coming to a new country and then feeling honeymoon. They have expectation very, very unrealistical. They have a fantasy, they coming to paradise. But after a couple of months, they coming disorienting, disappoint, and the people know, like, oh, that is not that I accepted from any new country. So coming cultural shock. What is a cultural shock? That is a classical difference from a culture. And we're speaking about people that are coming from Africa, from Asia to Europe. They're different culture in the different country. The culture, that is culture about very different position of the woman in the society, or etc., or etc. So a lot of immigrants, after a couple of months, 1 to 2 years, going to regression. Or what is a regression? People going to working and to make self-cap only with people from our country, and they stop integration. After a couple of years, the coming adjustment and the coming integration in the new community, in the new country. But this is schema, and important to know why, because immigrants needed very different, they have very different need in different phases. So we can't help people to the same way in every of these phases. So we can speaking about that. Where we can find the study about refugees, we can find them in European Journal of Psychotraumatology. We can find a Journal of Refugee Study in the Oxford Academic. Or there are a couple of studies. All of you know what we have had one war in Syria from 2011, and a lot of countries have refugees from Syria. 8 countries have made a big study and make a comparison, or all of 8 countries say that during this examination of the refugees, they find out that they have mental problem. They have PTSD. and like PTSD problem, but they haven't enough resource to help them. Because health system in the home country, in the new country, it is not capable to help other people with other language, other culture. It is not enough. It is not enough helpers for them. So that is a big problem in working with refugees. What is the biggest problem for them? Translation. A lot of things can be lost in translation. I can speak about that because I was a refugee and I was translator from a lot of people from former Yugoslavia, for example. But what is the problem? Political problem. If I, a Serbian and Jewish from Serbia, coming to translate to Croatian and the Muslims, so they don't trust to me. So that is a problem in translator with refugees. So we lost a lot of symptoms, a lot of things in translation, a lot of things we lost a system, a health system. So after all, we can find 19 articles who is good enough. And what we find in this 19 article, we find a very, very wide variation in prevalence for PTSD, from 2% to 86%. So one thing, it is not good. We must think about that. What is that we can find in the refugees? 2% on 86% of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. So that is a very, very, very difficult thema. So consistent with the broader literature, the study in our review supported an association for complex post-traumatic stress disorder with prolonged repatriation trauma and post-immigration living difficulties, with the latter association being specific to refugees and displaced population. So what is a summary for all this study? The effect of traumatized refugees remains sporadically examined. Many studies have a very limited methodology, working with small samples and without control group. So treatment and study of population are different and often not described in sufficient detail to be compared. So we have big problem how we can detect problem with refugees and how we can help them, which method we can use or how we can test this method. So some studies focus on traumatized refugees in their camps origin, and sometimes they focus in traumatized refugees in immigration country, and they have different legal status, from asylum seekers to persons who have had long-term residence in the country where they are treated. So I have worked with people, they're coming to Norway 6 months ago and 6 years ago. So that is very, 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 very difficult to say these people have the same need. Several studies of multidisciplinary treatment for refugees we have publication in Denmark, but were based on small sample receiving indefinite treatment and no significant change in patient's condition was detected. So what is that practically with the refugees? We know at the refugees we experiencing accumulated and severe traumas such as torture, imprisonment, living in refugees camp, losing loved ones, witnessing others being killed and abused, sexual assault, losing their belongings, and being in risk of losing their life. In civilian samples, the type of trauma is associated with the development of PTSD. And there is evidence that intentional trauma such as war or assault is associated with the higher prevalence of PTSD than in international trauma such as natural disaster and traffic accident. Perceived life threat, type of trauma, and traumatic dissociation also predict the PTSD severity in civilian population. So we speaking about trauma, or if we speak during the refugees period, but of course we must speaking about stress. Or stress is normal part of our life. You can experience stress from your environment, your body and your tools. Stress is a body reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. The body reacts to this change with physical, mental, and emotional response. All things happened between these two lines. It is stress. That is window of tolerance, or all happened in a window of tolerance, able to think and to feel at the same time and control your affect. We're speaking about window tolerance, about resilience, about capacity. It is a little bit different from resilience and capacity, but very, very light debate. But what happened with teen, we don't overwhelming or with windows of tolerance. That is a trauma. The simplest way define trauma, it is an experience we have that overwhelm our capacity to cope, to integrate it. So that is important to know, that a lot of things refugees have in baggage is overwhelming the capacity and window of tolerance. Peter Levine say, all of you know what Dr. Peter Levine is a father of somatic experience. Trauma is the most avoided, ignored, denied, and misunderstood, and the untreated cause in human suffering. But nobody wants to remember trauma. And during my work with the trauma, the cultural definition say to a lot of refugees don't like to speak about trauma. So don't like to speak. In my country, in the same, for the refugees and civilian people are very the same. We don't like to speak about trauma because that is stigmatized. And trauma, that is, it is practical invalid. What trauma can be? Trauma can be primary if you we have exposure to, and you self have experience. But secondary trauma is transfer from the people who suffering to you. But that is very specific for therapeut. All therapeut working with other people, all health personnel to working with other people, all social worker, all helpers, they working with people with suffering can have secondary trauma. On the first study about TRE and the secondary trauma is from South Africa, where social worker have used 12 weeks TRE and have had better results after them, and they was more grounded in your body after that. So that is important to know. That all of you, they working with people can experience secondary trauma. Trauma can be a signal event, a repetitive, prolonged, and chronic traumatic event. So each individual experience an unpleasant event or event over time that overhauled our natural defense mechanism bound up with the sense of horror, helplessness, or hopelessness when instinctive protective reaction occur. That is a trauma. But trauma, it is not only we built for war, for natural catastrophe. We can experience trauma in every day. That is a prenatal trauma, fetal blister, birth trauma, early surgery, anesthesia, high fever, suffocation, choking, and drowning. So we must know about that, people coming with trauma further. We have warfare history. Trauma can have high impact, very high intensity. High impact trauma is a practical fire, physical defense, falls, and brain injury, high impact and motor vehicle accident, So animal attack, escape, and rape, sexual abuse. So often rape, sexual abuse, and wounded for war, unfortunately. And why is this important to speak about trauma? Because trauma have directly impact all types of our memory: semantic memory, episodic memory, emotional memory, procedural memory. Or we use in TRE this procedural memory to help people to release deep muscular relaxation. But if we have problem with memory after traumatizing, after trauma, what is the problem with the refugees? Directly problem with the refugees is that a lot of energy in refugees use for survival, not for cognition. In normal situation, if a student going to other country to learn, they must use a lot of energy for learn new language, new culture, the adjustments, etc. Have people, they survive stronger for life and the feeling unsafeness. So what we have people, they can't learn. Or that can I can improve from our group in Norway, but we have had people 3-4 years in the same course, in the same teaching without good results, because these people always will use too much energy to survive. But it is very important to say it is trauma. It is not always a trauma damaged us. They can be at people with resources, with support, with help they need it. After, so resolution of trauma can make expansion or can develop a capacity. It can have more resource after that. I am example for that. And a lot of people I know is example for that. So we can say that I know a lot of people, they today working with trauma, working with TRE especially, all of them was refugees or have had big trauma in life and working with the trauma, and today they have big capacity and they can help other people. So that is important to know, because it is one tendency to say that refugees, all refugees is damaged. And all refugees, it is, it is not useful. It is not useful in your country, but that is not sure. That is not sure. And early help to refugees with resources can give a big results, a very good result with all these refugees, with people with resources. To understand what happened in our body during stress, during trauma, it is important to repeat that we already know. During stressful experience, the frontal lobes they are disengaged by the activation of the limbic system and brain system. The purpose of this neurological separation is so that brain will bypass the executive function of the cortex and activate our instinctual survival response. Or if you in the pyramid, you know, if we have an instinctual activated, that is too much energy blocked there. So that is important to make connection between the cortex and the other part of our brain. This instinctual brain process service during the stressor, however, over time, this neurological separation can lead to continued instinctual behavior and emotions, which can create impulsive, short-sighted, and violent behavior, increased anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and increased stress-related disease. All of you know that during Corona time, we have had increased anxiety, we have a depression. So all psychology around in the world reported in the last year that we have 20-30% more anxiety and depression after Corona time and before. So all of you can think what has happened with refugees. There are a lot of refugees, and there are more refugees than civilian before people can have increased anxiety and depression. Our autonomous nervous system have responsibility to continuous assessment of the safety, danger and threat to life in the internal and external environment. Then autonomous nervous system have two parts, parasympathetic nerve and the sympathetic nerve. Parasympathetic nerve for all of you is very important, for all of us are very important because they have the biggest role in the rest. But sympathetic nervous system, the biggest role in mobilizing to prepare us for defense. And autonomous nervous system continually working with exteroception or interoception. What happened outside or what happened inside of us. And why is it important that? Because we must still adjust us to environment, very dependent of safeness. So adjustment is self-regulation and ability to self-regulation. That is ability to tolerate and control our emotion, thoughts, feeling and sensation independently of the external supervision or regulation. And all research say that our self-regulation is very dependent from top-down control. What is a top-down control? All information coming from our body and environment and going on cortex, and the cortex have executive function or say, okay, with decision and making, emotion regulation, or executive attention. All of you know, they working with the TRE, that we always speak about probability to self-regulation. And all of us lose self-regulation sometimes if we have had chronic stress or traumatic event. Our body have a lot of drugs from different things from our life, or that is a sensation our nervous system detect, or all this sensation coming up. If we have too much of this sensation, so top-down control, it is not enough, it is not easy. One of the biggest nerves in the parasympathetic system is vagus nerve. Or that is a nerve, we think, about 90% of all signals outside, inside the send to our brain is vagus nerve. You can see how big area is stretch a nervus vagus, and especially think here in our throat. All of us have had problems sometimes to see anything because our throat is strained. So nervus vagus is the longest cranial nerve in the body, stretching from brainstem to down to the stomach. And a nervus vagus have two sources, one ventral and one dorsal. So we're speaking often of dorsal vagus and ventral vagus. Dr. Stephen Purgas, and very nosely psychiater, speaking always our instinctual defense system. Our instinctual defense system is very dependent from autonomous nervous system and the feeling of safeness. If we feeling us safe, ventral vague is air engagement. We can see activated. Is it social engagement? Or therefore, it is very important if we're speaking with other people that we can make other people safe, and social engagement and discussion is okay. But if the other side is the people feeling a threatedness to life, what happened? They happened activated in sympathetical nervous system mobilization, and the first part becoming the flight and the fight system. Here is flight, but they is flight on the fight. First flight and other flight. But it's impossible to make both fight or flight. What coming? Our body use then dorsal vagus nerves and use the latest and most primitive way to help us, to send us in the freeze. That is conserving a vital energy and numbing the body with endorphins. This is and the first time help to survive. In this graphic, they can say that a little the other way. So here we have our capacity, our window tolerance, all things coming up, going in the freeze, shut down our nervous system. So if our nervous system going in the freeze, the cortex is disengaged, what we have? Freezing. This is experience of stiffness in the joints, hands or feet, where normal sensation is reduced. You might feel cold or tingling or numbness. Flooding is the feeling of having strong emotion, sensation, feeling of tools that are too overwhelmingly integrated into the present moment. The dissociation is the experience of temporarily losing connection with our tools, sensation, the feeling. I really first time most speaking about dissociation, because dissociation is functional. Dissociation is our helper. And if you meet people every day, you can observe that people is 10%, 20%, 50%, and yourself dissociated. What is dissociated? How we can recognize that people is dissociating? A couple of psychologists say that we can find 27 different ways to recognize, to observing dissociation. We feel completely numb. Find yourself staring in one spot, noting anything. Feel like you are not really in your body, like you are watching yourself in the movie. Feel suddenly lighting or dizzy, lost the plot of the show of conversation you were focused on. Feel you're not real, like you're in a dream. Feel you're like floating, or etc., or etc. So that is a lot of the different form of dissociation. Or what we're working with. We're working to put people back in the body, to make contact with the body, with the emotion, and with the thoughts. We are working with that for ourselves, for the most important for all of us, to observing ourselves, how much I am dissociated actually this moment, and help. So we can observe it to other people or help them to coming back in the body. So how we can help refugees? So we can see, okay, practically all refugees is dissociated. We don't know anything about them. We don't speak their language. We are not familiar with their culture. We can't know what the different face thing say to us. What can we do to them? Most important of all, to see, to have empathy. That we can, all of us can give to them without discussion. So that is, all body can recognize empathy. Of course, we go back to say that we have different phases of refugees' life. Directly in the shock, on the aftershock, in honeymoon phase, in cultural shock, and adjustment phase. So different phase can give different need. So in shock phase, the folk feeling helplessness, dependency, disorienting, and isolation, loneliness. The most important after mean experience with working with the refugees from home country and in Norway and the Turkey, stabilization and grounding. Stabilization and grounding. To help them to be here and now, accept what has happening, orient them. Because people they have contact with body can do more, can do anything. But people in the freeze can do anything. Oh, and especially coming a new country phases, or they can be speaking about a new way to help. There are a lot of research, a lot of helpers, a lot of tools. All of you can find an Institute of Trauma in Israel, where Gina Ross have made both films and tabelas about that, how we can help people in the first phase, in the shock phase. We have 5 phases for managing of emotion reaction during time of stress of the crisis. My recommendation to find for internet, because Gina Ross give for free a couple of films, and this is emotional aid, the placard we can find in 15 different languages for these phases. So all of us must know what that, the first step, other step, etc., etc. I don't coming to speak too much about that. I myself have made a placard with grounding the exercise, or we recommended about 11, but there can be 20 different ways to make grounding. After my work in the refugees, I have changed my work in TRE. So the elementary thing in my work is grounding exercise. For me, it's most important to ground people. It is not enough. It is not too much to working to grounding. And observate it if people have connection with the body, if people are feeling safe or no. So grounding is most important for working with refugees. And during this Corona time, I think all of us was more mentioned refugees from our body, because it is not very pleasant this time. So grounding exercise is very, very important. So when we coming to TRE, the lot of them waited what is a TRE. Dr. David Barcelli, founder for TRE. That is an innovative series of exercise that assists the body in releasing deep muscular pattern of stress, tension, and trauma. The exercise safely activated a natural reflex mechanism of checking or vibrating that release muscular tension, calming down the nervous system or reset them. When this muscular shaking vibration mechanism is activated in a safe and a controlled environment, the body is encouraged to return a state of balance. TRE is a natural method. It is not one thing we coming to learn people. Already people have knowledge about that, but self-regulation is damaged. We must help to renew self-regulation. Have we today a study, they improve that I'm speaking about, at TRE can help other people and especially can help refugees. Yes, we have. Take a pressure, Dr. Andreas Harold, it is a psychiater from Switzerland. And he have worked with refugees in Ukraine, but in first time 2014, 2015, and a couple of studies about working with these refugees. Well, this is the work they all of you can find in traumaprevention.com, both a little bit on English, but more in the Russian and Ukrainian language. But preliminary, all this study speaking about benefit in work with refugees. But I recommend that most practical the more study from Dr. Melania Salmon. I have learned from Melania Salmon about working to child in TRE, because Maria Salmon have worked 10 years in South Africa. And he have a very, very, really good study in Crystal Academy in Cape Town in South Africa. There was young people in South Africa. All of you can see they are refugees, or that is students without family and a child without family. So he have made 2 very big study, and all of this study will show very good results. 85 to 95% of the have had better result is life quality in the teaching, in the result in the school. So I'm warmly recommend this all study from Dr. Melanie Salmon from South Africa. So what I can see at working with TRE with the refugees, I must see that we must be very careful. And the first moment of safetyness, safety, safety, safety. It is the best for someone from their culture to work with them, because they haven't trust, they don't believe in other people. Dr. David Bercelli say to me, they coming in Turkey in 2015 to working with Syria, the refugees from in Istanbul. But organization give them only 10 person outside and the camp, and they say, okay, you can working with them. So it is not this goal, Dr. David Bercelli coming from USA to Istanbul, but that was that. People we didn't accept to working with the other person. So what is a practical reason? We must learn, educated people from camp, or they can working with refugees. So people must speak their language. So people have more trust to people, very similar people. So I have started working with refugees in Norway, but with a very big advantage. My advantage was that I am a refugee self. So we have had connection. They think, oh, you understand us. You are our friends. So that is a very important, because we're speaking about nervous system. We're speaking about instinctual reaction. So it is very important to think about that. And think that we're working with people with uncommon capacity and people practically we don't know have the resources or no. But sometimes I think if one woman coming from Africa and coming to Norway, she have resources. She have resources because life in Africa is more harder than in Norway. So I think, or always say to them, all of them have resources, more resources than women in Norway. So they always take that with heart. I will show working our colleague, TRE provider, Khalid Kalyoti, going to to Lebanon. In Lebanon, Lebanon is a very, very big refugee center. So from Lebanon coming folk from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from Syria, all. That is a very, very big refugee center. So Khalid was there after starting a beginning of war in Syria, and he have worked in a refugees camp. All of you can find 2 videos in the YouTube about work, Khalid work, or Khalid work with women. That is very difficult, and a child around, and so this is all of these women speak about that. They had the better sleeping. It is not, they have lost a back pain, or etc. or etc. So all of you can find that. So if you, I have a shortly film about that, but if I part this film, they don't going translating the ongoing Arabical, so that it is not useful for them. But if you're going to YouTube, all of you can find testimony in English, but translating to English. So my advice, the recommendation to working with the refugees, here it is a picture about refugees in church. I have working with the Serbian refugees from Croatia. Oh, that was a couple of women I have worked a very long time. So all of you think about that we have people with uncommon capacity, lack resource, that we must working first grounding. We must working thinking about titration and dosing, and slowly. After I started working with TRE 2012, after that, we have had a recommendation to working 10-15 minutes continually vibration. But after my experience with the refugees, I think it is more important to working shortly with vibration and the grounding, shortly with vibration and grounding. So be very, very careful, because the people can be overwhelmed quickly, or I have had that. I was alone working with 15 people, or so 10 people started to cry. So it was very difficult for me to going or stabilizing, to grounding all people at the same time. So after an unpleasant experience, so I have started to working very similar to somatic experience, the way I see titration. They can be very different from people to people. They can be, your choice can be wrong, but so what? Next time they can be better. So in the last advanced training with Dr. David Barcelli and Richard Heath, coming with one recommendation, or this is a recommendation how we can make the first session with our client, or first session with our client, we don't know too much about the client, and the first we don't know so much about capacity. So that is a recommendation that we can have 3, 4, or fair butterfly position. Only 3 can be enough sometimes. And the 3-4 minutes in each position vibration. But my experience is there can be enough 1 minute, 2 minutes, and a stop. So my experience is very similar to that some David Barcelli said, oh, stopping and starting, because we can give to body feeling of control. On the first time, they can going very, very careful and in this way. Next time, if you work with the same people, they can be with 3 minutes vibration or more. But always we're speaking about that. but we must see to client that client can stop self. So self-regulation is important, and that people can self-decide the stop. So that is important to think about the refugees too. That is very and most important. In 2016, I have made one pilot study in Norway, in the Oslo, with one organization, a multicultural workplace. And in this time, in Norway, was 16.5% of the refugees, of the other people you can see, but today, I think that over 20% of people in Norway is immigrants. So they find a couple of research in Norway. It is not big, of course, it is sample, but we have that. So we have had one study that say 52% have had PTSD. So we have had young people, over 30% young people have had PTSD. But before I started to working, I find one study at Hans-Petter Sandegard, it is a psychiater, take a PhD in working with refugees in Sweden, about 2,000 refugees, and they have made a very big test, and they find 32% PTSD. So that was a point I started with. So I know, okay, people have PTSD. And I have used one schema to help we reflect from whole schema from study of Hans-Petter Sandegard. And I have translated the schema in 10 different languages and used in my pilot study. Why? Because people didn't speak Norwegian, so they didn't speak English too. So it was very, very difficult how we can find any information from them. So after we have started with 100 people, but at the end we have found 35, 80 men, 70 women, and they made 70% of them have had sleeping problems, 75 have had violence in the life, and the mood changes 90% to 50%. So okay, that is a clue to PTSD. All of these people practically have PTSD. I haven't picture with women because women we didn't give permission, but this is one group of the men in one classroom. I have had people from Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Eritrea, China, Romania. So we have started, we practice it with 2 school semester and with 12 Thursday for 1-2 hours. Sometimes we have had more. We practice it with women and men separately because women don't accept working together with men. So all these things is a problem in working with refugees. We tested them before starting to practice. Our plan was that them after the work was completed. Satisfaction test we have tried after 6 TRE workshop, or 95% response say they want to continue working with us and they feel more relaxed. Well, that was very, 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 very big results for me, or especially I have had, you can see, I am very suspect to think about men from Somalia, how they can accept working with TRE. But I was surprised. After 2-3 times, they asked me, can they coming woman? Can they coming in the TRE child? So we have started development our job with women, with child that don't integrate it in program of the Norwegian government. But before we having chance to complete our study, our pilot study, 70% of our refugees left the course in organization and government and found a job. So we could not test them, but we can have one good conclusion about that. If we compare this group with TRE and the other group without TRE, in our group, only 30% continue in the to learn on the repeat this course government pay for. But the other group have had 90% of them. So that is a big difference. And because people from our group, I think, they find capacity after work to find job, to learn better, or to find one job. So I will share one very important experience. I have had in my group child soldier. This is man. It is about 30 years. He was a soldier from 9. From 9, you can think about 20 years with terror, horror, or other thing with the rifle in hands, and coming to Norway. So this was very specific for him. At every time we working, any vibration. So all of us can find, from one time to other time, people without vibration. They can't sleep free. They can't release. That is one PTSD, very strong PTSD. He couldn't be vibrating. Sometimes he coming to move me, I think because he like me, but not naturally. But I take the couple of refugees in Serbian celebration of year of Serbian Association in Oslo, and this was a big celebration. About 500 people were. And what happened? That happened at all of us cry. That was very touchable for us. First time after practical 15 years in a lot of people, we make one association, we have 100 people playing. So we are accepted because we were prosecuted both in Norway and the world. So together we starting to cry. I cry too. And after the official celebration, of course, they was together with us to take picture, to eat, to speaking. All of our people say, we are brother, we are all refugees, we are all prosecuted. So that was empathy for all of them. Odi was from Iraq, from Sudan, from Iran, from different country, different religion. Or a lot of people, Serbian people is Christianity. So that was very big happening for them. The next time I coming to work with them, first time I heard him to speak. First time he's starting to speak. What to speak? He explained to all of them how touchable word for him, how emotive words to him, to feeling our energy, our life, to our country, the home country. We can feeling love, but we know that it is not all thing good is our country, but we love our home country. So that was very important for him, or that was trigger to coming in contact with emotion. After 2-3 weeks, he had find a job and starting to work to be independently. So that is a very important experience, how we can working with people, include them or help them to coming in contact with emotion, because during PTSD, that is disconnection with emotion too. So after then the experience, I was in Copenhagen I work with one conference about refugees somatic experience organization. Would they meet people from Turkey? Or they speaking about problem with refugees? They speaking about problem with between refugees and the civil population in Istanbul. That is was about 5 million different refugees from different countries. It is not only from Syria, they're coming from Iraq, Iran, etc., etc. So I have, so of course, I'm feeling big empathy for them because I work with, we have had 1 million refugees in Serbia during the last war, or any people help us. I working with the refugees in Norway. So ask them, we know them about TRE. Now they don't. So I started my journey with Turkey, and the pressure to Hans' support, because I was only TRE trainee in this time, and it was for me a very, very big challenge with that. But my empathy and my love for this job was biggest. So I have used to fly one car, and we are coming to one village in Turkey. Why one in village? Because it was time military coup Erdogan, and it was forbid to have more than 15 people in one room. So we coming one village that is more 30 Celsius degree, and the catastrophe for my PC. so we have worked one balcony that all of you that can see. So after we then, of course, we have made a big placard of the wedding, because that was permit. If we have a wedding, there can be more than 15%. So we was about 30 over 30 people, and results of that is that we have today 14 TRE provided in Turkey. We have translated the book of David Barcelli on Turkish. We have had 120 people in this education of all modules in the Turkey. And my students working with refugees in Turkey, because for me it is more difficult to going in. But my students speaking Arabian, speaking other language, and they're going in the camp and working with the refugees. So in 2018, it was an answering question about what they like most about Turkish refugees program. Their favorite was to learn Turkish, but TRE was number 2. So, of course, it was my idea to give to people from refugees camp, to refugees self, and for free education to TRE. But they say they thank you because they don't think to be in Turkey. So they think, okay, it is not good for us to use that, and they don't use after that. So that is important to know. My students had working with LGBT population and the travesties, and especially Baran who worked at that. Well, that was a very, very, we can see big success. Or we have had, of course, a woman, this is medical doctor from a very, very conservative environment, but she was very big resource for us, because she coming in the environment, she coming in society, or we were working with TRE. So therefore, in my experience of people from this culture, we must educate it and working with them. So, of course, I must see at both myself and my students they working with the refugees have had problem after that. So working with refugees can be challenging and sometimes traumatic. You are directly assisting people who may have been through some extreme experiences. However, working to people, refugees, is also an incredibly fulfilling and compassionate line of work. It's possible to make some amazing human connection. So that is important to know. I have had too much students, they coming to working with one person, they must help one person. So I know, oh, the student is overwhelmed me already. So you must start, might stop or help them. So that is an important way to know that all helpers needed help after a very short time. So I think that was all I can see. I can answer a question they have. Well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It was great listening to you and hearing about your experiences. You have done an amazing job in many difficult situations, and I'm happy that you would share some of your experiences with us on this very important and challenging topic, especially in the current situation. So I would like to thank everyone for participating. And if anyone would like to join us for a TRE session, it's possible to sign up, and there's also possibility for to ask more questions and communicate more. Also, if I guess many of you are already TRE instructors or and so on, but if anyone is interested in a TRE training, we have a training in Oslo, Norway, in May, where it's possible to participate online or come to Oslo as well. So yes, thank you again, Sarah. We might do another talk with Sarah later on one of our other specialities, which is medical trauma experienced in the context of medical conditions, medical treatment, and so on, and which also is a very challenging and important topic. Okay, thank you again, Sarah. I know a couple of you will show up for the next session, and it's still time possibility to sign up if anyone is interested. Yes, and I would also like to mention that we have more of these talks. Next time is by Mikael Nissen, a Danish psychologist, who will speak about his experiences with teaching a TRE to people with MS, also that's multiple sclerosis in Denmark. And they have also done some research studies on that in Denmark as well, and have shown interesting results. And they also are doing more studies as well. So we might have an update on that as well.
I will see one thing, Hans, that is was always a very big problem to find enough place for making TRE session. So people haven't a classroom, they haven't. So I coming in classroom, so what we can do? So we lost 30 minutes to take out. So I have started to working on the chair. Or therefore, I will show to all of you in the next session how we can working on the chair. So it is not possible always to have enough place, place for TRE session. So we can working in this condition we have, because time is for that. So you can call business theory. I call it that it is business theory. You can you an architect bureau or working on the chair, economical bureau, bank working on the chair, because all of people from my experience say, oh, we haven't room for that. Where we can low down, we haven't enough place for that. So for me, it is important to know that we can working theory on the chair too.
Yeah.
So,
I think also TRE working on a chair is very good. If you are combining TRE with some talk therapy or somatic experiencing or other type of cognitive therapy where you can move, maybe start sitting, talking, or doing some other types of work, and then move to the floor, or even move from the floor back to the chair again. So many different options. Okay, so if anyone would like to do a TRE session in sitting, that's the option for the next session. I think we have to end here, Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you to everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you
Bye-bye.
to all of you.
Hans, for a next session, it's a new Zoom link. Yes.
Yeah, I will send you a new Zoom link for the next session.
I have. Okay. We see us.
Bye.